Dr. Han's hands trembled as he adjusted the quantum observation array's controls. The soft blue glow of the screens illuminated his three eyes, casting strange shadows across his pale gray skin. The massive observatory dome of the Stellar Research Institute hummed quietly around him as he worked late into the night cycle on planet Centauri. Initially, he had been conducting routine observations of various inhabited worlds when he first noticed something odd about the third planet in the Sol system. What started as a curious anomaly in his readings had quickly evolved into an obsession that kept him at his post long after his colleagues had retired to their rest chambers. The screens before him displayed various scenes from Earth, each more puzzling than the last. He watched humans running through a place called Death Valley, where temperatures soared high enough to cook proteins. Yet these beings not only survived but seemed to be enjoying themselves, their bodies adapting to conditions that would kill most species in minutes. "Computer, verify atmospheric temperature readings," Dr. Han commanded, his voice slightly shaky. Temperature readings confirmed. Average surface temperature in observed location, 56.7 degrees Celsius. Dr. Han's middle eye twitched, a sign of extreme stress among his species. He had already triple-checked these readings, but his mind refused to accept what he was seeing. On his world, such temperatures would cause immediate cellular breakdown. He switched to another feed, showing humans diving deep into their planet's oceans. Without any technological assistance, they were reaching depths that should crush their organs. The pressure readings made him feel faint. No carbon-based life form should be able to withstand such conditions. "Computer, show me human biological readings during deep dive activities." The data scrolled across his screen. Heart rate, blood oxygen levels, cellular integrity. Everything indicated these creatures were somehow adapting their bodies to conditions that defied conventional biological understanding. As he delved deeper into his research, Dr. Han discovered even more incredible feats. Humans were regularly surviving injuries that would be fatal to any other known species. They recovered from broken bones, massive blood loss, and even partial organ removal. Their bodies seemed to possess an almost magical ability to regenerate and adapt. "This is impossible," he muttered, reaching for his sixth cup of stimulant beverage. His hand shook so badly that some of the purple liquid spilled onto his pristine white research robes. He watched footage of humans in various environments: frozen wastelands, scorching deserts, humid jungles, and high mountains. They not only survived but thrived in conditions that spanned an environmental range wider than any other known species in the galaxy. Dr. Han pulled up the historical records of human activities. What he found made his three hearts skip simultaneously. These beings had evolved from persistence hunters who could chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They could go days without sleep, survive weeks without food, and their bodies could adapt to almost any environment given enough time. "Computer, compare human endurance capabilities with all known sentient species in the database." The results made him slide back in his hover chair, all three eyes wide with disbelief. Humans ranked at the top in almost every category of physical resilience. They could outperform every known species in terms of adaptability and survival. As the night cycle wore on, Dr. Han found himself completely absorbed in studying human physical capabilities. He watched them participate in something called extreme sports, where they deliberately put themselves in dangerous situations for entertainment. They climbed frozen waterfalls, jumped from high places with minimal safety equipment, and willingly entered fighting competitions. The more he observed, the more his scientific worldview began to crumble. Everything he had learned about the limitations of biological life forms was being challenged by these remarkable creatures. When the morning cycle began, Dr. Han was still at his post, surrounded by empty stimulant cups and data pads filled with notes. His colleagues found him muttering to himself as he reviewed the same footage over and over again. "Are you unwell, Dr. Han?" asked his research assistant, noting his disheveled appearance. "Unwell? No, no," he replied, his voice filled with excitement and disbelief. I'm witnessing something that changes everything we thought we knew about biological limitations. These humans, they're extraordinary. They're impossible. They shouldn't exist, but they do. His assistant looked concerned, but Dr. Han barely noticed. He was too busy wondering how he could convince the scientific council that everything they thought they knew about the boundaries of life needed to be reconsidered. As he finally saved his observation data and prepared to leave his post, Dr. Han knew one thing with absolute certainty. His life's work would never be the same after this discovery. These humans, these seemingly impossible beings, had just shattered 2 centuries of established xenobiological science. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would completely change his life and challenge everything he thought he knew about the universe and its inhabitants. The emergency meeting of the Science Council was called early in the morning cycle. Dr. Han stood nervously before the most respected scientific minds on Centauri, his research data displayed on the massive holoscreen behind him. The chamber's circular design allowed all 50 council members to observe him simultaneously, their multiple eyes focused intently on his presentation. As you can see from these observations, Dr. Han said, his voice steadied despite his anxiety. Humans routinely engage in activities that would be fatal to any known species in our database. Dr. Li, the head of the council, leaned forward in his hover chair. His facial membrane rippled with skepticism, a clear sign of disapproval in their species. You're being ridiculous, Han. No species can exhibit such traits naturally. Your equipment must be malfunctioning. I've checked and rechecked all my equipment, Han insisted, switching to the next slide of his presentation. Look at this footage. Here's a human recovering from a complete bone fracture in mere weeks. And here, they're deliberately exposing themselves to extreme temperatures for something they call spa treatments. The council members muttered among themselves, their triple-toned voices creating an unsettling harmony of disbelief and dismissal. Dr. Han felt his heart sinking, but he pressed on. And this is perhaps the most extraordinary evidence, he said, displaying new footage. They willingly consume capsaicin, a neurotoxin, for pleasure. They call it spicy food and actively seek stronger variants of it. Preposterous. Dr. Li interrupted, rising from his chair. Dr. Han, your reputation has always been impeccable, but this presentation borders on scientific fantasy. No carbon-based life form could survive such conditions, let alone enjoy them. Han switched to his final slides, showing statistical data. I've confirmed these observations through multiple independent sources. They routinely survive things that would kill us instantly. Their regenerative capabilities far exceed anything we've ever encountered. Their environmental adaptability is off our charts. Enough. Dr. Li's voice echoed through the chamber. This is clearly a malfunction in your observation equipment, combined with perhaps too many hours spent in isolation. I recommend you take a rest cycle and have your equipment thoroughly checked. Other council members began voicing their agreement. Dr. Han watched in dismay as centuries of respected colleagues dismissed his findings without proper consideration. His third eye twitched rapidly, betraying his growing frustration. You're not even looking at the evidence, he protested. These beings are rewriting everything we thought we knew about biological limitations. We need to study them, learn from them. Dr. Han, another council member, spoke up. Perhaps you should focus on more productive research. Your current fixation on these humans is becoming unhealthy. The meeting concluded with the council officially rejecting his findings and ordering a complete diagnostic of his research equipment. As Han left the chamber, he heard his colleagues whispering about his mental state. Back in his private laboratory, Han reviewed his data again. Every measurement, every observation confirmed what he already knew. Humans were extraordinary beings that defied conventional scientific understanding. The thought of having his life's most important discovery dismissed without proper investigation made all 3 of his hearts ache. As the evening cycle approached, Han made a decision that would change his life forever. He began downloading all his research data onto portable drives, carefully selecting the most crucial evidence. His hands trembled as he packed a small bag with personal belongings. Using his security clearance from 2 centuries of service, Han accessed the research vessel bay. The night guard barely glanced at him. After all, he was a respected senior scientist who often worked late. Inside the bay, he chose a small, fast vessel designed for long-range observation missions. As he initiated the launch sequence, memories of his 200 years at the Institute flashed through his mind. He thought of his colleagues, his achievements, his comfortable life, all of which he was about to abandon. But the thought of these remarkable humans, and the chance to study them up close, overshadowed everything else. The vessel's engines hummed to life. Han entered the coordinates for Earth into the navigation system. As the ship lifted off, alarms began blaring in the distance. They had discovered his unauthorized launch. But it was too late to stop him. By the time the morning cycle began, Han's ship had already passed beyond Centaur's orbit. He watched through the viewport as his home world became smaller and smaller, eventually fading to a mere point of light among countless stars. "Computer, estimated time to Earth?" he asked, settling into the pilot's chair. "At current speed, arrival at Sol system in approximately 47 days, the computer responded. Han took a deep breath, all 3 of his eyes fixed on the path ahead. He knew he would be labeled a traitor, a thief, perhaps even insane. But he couldn't ignore the truth he had discovered. Humans were too extraordinary to be dismissed by close-minded bureaucrats. As his ship accelerated toward Earth, Han began reviewing his research data again. Soon, he would see these remarkable beings up close, and nothing in his long life had ever excited him more than that prospect. The interrogation room at the United Earth Defense Force headquarters was deliberately designed to be intimidating, but Dr. Han found himself more fascinated than frightened by it. He noticed how the harsh lighting would be perfect for human vision, but slightly uncomfortable for most other species, just another small example of humanity's unique adaptations. Director Kim sat across from him. A stack of tablets containing Han's translated research spread across the metal table. The director's face remained carefully neutral, but Han could detect subtle signs of curiosity in his expression, another uniquely human trait, the ability to control facial muscles with such precision. "So you just quit your job and came here?" Director Kim asked, tapping his fingers on the table. The sound echoed in the sparse room. "Abandoned a 200-year career, stole a research vessel, and risked interstellar incident, all because you found us interesting." "I had to," Han replied, his translator converting his triple-tone speech into perfect human language. "Your species is extraordinary. Everything we thought we knew about biological limits needs to be rewritten. My own people refuse to even consider the evidence." The director leaned back, studying the alien scientist. Han knew his appearance. 3 eyes, grayish skin, and translucent protective membrane must seem as strange to the human as human features appeared to him. "And you expect us to believe that you came alone, with no hidden agenda?" Director Kim's voice carried a hint of skepticism that Han's translator perfectly conveyed. "I brought all my research data." Han gestured to the tablets. "Every observation, every measurement. I know it sounds impossible, but I'm here purely out of scientific curiosity." A gentle knock interrupted their conversation. Dr. Song, the government's leading xenobiologist, entered the room carrying more tablets. Her presence had become familiar over the past few weeks of intensive questioning. "Director," she said, placing the tablets on the table, "we've completed our analysis of Dr. Han's research vessel. It contains exactly what he claimed: observation equipment and research data. No weapons, no hidden compartments, no suspicious technology." Director Kim picked up one of the new tablets, scrolling through the information. "And his background check. Verified through multiple sources," Dr. Song confirmed. "He really was a leading scientist on Centauri. His credentials are impeccable." And yes, he's now considered a fugitive by his people for stealing the research vessel. Han watched this exchange with interest. The efficiency with which humans processed and verified information was remarkable, another testament to their unique capabilities. Tell me, Dr. Han. Director Kim set down the tablet. What exactly do you hope to achieve here on Earth? I want to study how humans can do what they do, Han replied eagerly. How can you survive conditions that would kill most species? How do you adapt so quickly to extreme environments? How can you consume substances that would be lethal to others? The potential applications of understanding these abilities could revolutionize medicine and survival science across the galaxy. Dr. Song couldn't hide a small smile at his enthusiasm. He's been asking similar questions since he arrived. Director. His curiosity appears genuine. The director stood up and paced the room slowly. Something Han had learned was a common human habit when thinking deeply. After several minutes of silence, he turned to face the alien scientist. Dr. Han, we're prepared to grant you limited access to human population centers for your research, under strict supervision, Director Kim announced. Dr. Song will be assigned as your primary liaison and monitor. You'll need to submit regular reports and follow all security protocols. Han's 3 hearts beat faster with excitement. Thank you. You won't regret this decision. However, the director's voice grew stern. Any violation of our security protocols, any attempt to share sensitive information with your people, and this arrangement ends immediately. Is that clear? Absolutely clear, Han agreed quickly. I'm here to learn, not to compromise your security. Over the next few hours, Dr. Song helped Han understand the extensive list of protocols he would need to follow. The humans' attention to detail in their security measures was impressive, if somewhat overwhelming. As they left the interrogation room, Dr. Song turned to Han with a curious expression. You really gave up everything you had just to study us. Han's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, his species equivalent of a smile. Wouldn't you do the same if you discovered something that changed everything you thought you knew about the universe? Dr. Song considered this for a moment before nodding. I suppose that's the true spirit of scientific discovery. Welcome to Earth, Dr. Han. I think you're going to find us even more fascinating up close. As they walked through the facility, Han couldn't help but notice how every human they passed displayed slightly different physical characteristics, another remarkable example of their species' incredible variety. His excitement grew with each step, knowing he was about to begin the most important research of his long life. Dr. Han's protective membrane quivered uncontrollably as he watched his research assistant, Jeho, casually pick up a bright red jalapeno pepper from the laboratory's break-room table. The young human examined it briefly before taking a large bite, causing Han to jump back in alarm. That's literally poison, Han exclaimed, his 3 eyes widening in shock. His monitoring equipment was registering the capsaicin levels, and they were far beyond what any sensible species should willingly consume. It's just a mild one, Jeho shrugged, reaching for another pepper with a bemused smile. Wait until you see ghost peppers. My brother grows them in his garden. They're about 50 times hotter than this. Han quickly made notes on his tablet, his hands still trembling. 50 times, and humans eat these, voluntarily. Some people even compete to eat the hottest peppers they can find, Jeho explained, finishing the second jalapeno. There are whole festivals dedicated to spicy food. The concept of celebrating the consumption of toxic substances was just one of many human behaviors that challenged Han's understanding of rational species behavior. Over the following months, his research log filled with similarly bewildering observations. One particularly memorable incident occurred when Jeho took him to observe something called Parker training. Han watched in horror as humans deliberately jumped between buildings, flipped over concrete barriers, and climbed walls with no safety equipment. This defies all survival instincts, Han muttered, recording the activity. Every other species evolves to avoid unnecessary physical risks. That's what makes it fun, one of the parkour practitioners explained after landing a particularly dangerous-looking jump. It's about pushing boundaries and overcoming fears. The concept of fun in relation to potentially fatal activities was still something Han struggled to comprehend. His confusion only deepened when Jeho introduced him to winter sports. At a local ice swimming competition, Han watched humans willingly submerge themselves in near-freezing water. His equipment registered temperatures that should have caused immediate hypothermia in most species, yet the swimmers emerged laughing and chatting as if they hadn't just done something extraordinary. Their bodies are actually adapting to the cold, Han noted in his research log. Cardiovascular systems adjusting, metabolism altering, all voluntary responses to conditions that should be lethal. Even more astonishing were human medical facilities. Han spent weeks observing an emergency room, documenting cases that challenged everything he knew about biological resilience. Humans recovered from injuries that would have meant certain death on his world. He watched a young athlete recover from a completely broken leg, not only surviving but expecting to return to sports. A construction worker survived a fall that should have been fatal, and within months was talking about going back to work. A child's ability to heal from severe burns left him speechless. Your species seems to operate on the assumption that you're invincible, Han commented to Jeho one day, after watching a group of teenagers practicing skateboard tricks that repeatedly resulted in falls and injuries. Not invincible, Jeho corrected, just resilient. We know we can get hurt, but we also know we can usually recover. This attitude toward injury and recovery was fascinating to Han. On his world, any serious injury usually meant the end of an individual's active life. The human capacity to not only survive but thrive after severe physical trauma was unprecedented. One afternoon, Han accompanied Jeho to a local gym, where he witnessed humans voluntarily lifting weights that could crush their bones, running on machines until they were drenched in sweat, and purposely pushing their bodies to exhaustion. You deliberately stress your bodies to make them stronger, Han observed, recording the various activities. The concept of no pain, no gain seems to be deeply embedded in human psychology. It's how we adapt and improve, Jeho explained, preparing for his own workout. Our bodies respond to stress by getting stronger. Han's research notes grew increasingly detailed as he documented these seemingly endless examples of human physical and psychological resilience. Each day brought new surprises and challenges to his understanding of biological limitations. Perhaps most remarkable was how ordinary humans found all of this. They treated their extraordinary capabilities as completely normal, often seeming surprised by Han's amazement at their feats. I believe I'm only beginning to understand the full scope of human adaptability, Han wrote in his research log that evening. Their casual relationship with what other species would consider extreme danger suggests not just physical resilience, but a unique psychological adaptation that allows them to constantly push beyond perceived limitations. As he finished his daily notes, Han watched Jeho casually drink a beverage that was nearly boiling hot, another simple act that would have caused severe internal damage to any of his own species. Just another day studying the fascinating and terrifying capabilities of humanity. The Global Research Center buzzed with activity as Dr. Han and Dr. Park reviewed their latest findings. Holographic displays filled the room with data streams and video footage, all documenting various aspects of human behavior that continued to astound the alien scientist. Dr. Park was organizing their research data when he noticed Han staring intently at footage of an amusement park. The alien's three eyes were fixed on the massive steel structures that humans willingly strap themselves into for entertainment. You mean to tell me, Han asked, his protective membrane rippling with disbelief, that humans routinely simulate danger for entertainment? You mean roller coasters? Yeah, we love them, Park replied, amused by Han's shocked expression. Want to try one? Han politely declined, his gray skin turning slightly paler at the mere suggestion. Instead, he added another chapter to his growing research, titled Recreational Terror: The Human Paradox. I simply cannot understand, Han said, reviewing the footage again. why any species would deliberately trigger their fear response for pleasure. The physiological readings show elevated heart rates, adrenaline spikes, and stress responses identical to genuine danger situations. Dr. Park chuckled as he pulled up more data on human entertainment. That's nothing. Wait until you see horror movies. We pay money to be scared by fictional stories and images. Han's recording device whirred as he documented this new information. Your species intentionally seeks out simulated trauma for recreation. It's a safe way to experience extreme emotions, Park explained. Look at these brain scans. The fear response triggers a release of chemicals that many humans find pleasurable, especially when they know they're actually safe. The research center's computers processed vast amounts of data as Han documented more examples of this peculiar human behavior. He was particularly fascinated by haunted houses, where humans paid to have other humans frighten them in darkened buildings. And this is considered normal? Han asked, watching footage of people screaming their way through a haunted attraction. No other species we've encountered deliberately seeks out fear responses unless necessary for survival training. Dr. Park pulled up more examples: bungee jumping, skydiving, horror video games, and extreme sports. Each new activity made Han's membrane quiver more intensely. The most fascinating aspect, Han noted in his research log, is not just that humans seek out these experiences, but that they appear to build psychological resilience through repeated exposure to simulated danger. Their research revealed that humans who engaged in these activities often showed improved stress responses in real-world situations. The data suggested that recreational fear experiences actually help humans better handle genuine threats. It's like your species has evolved to use fear as a tool rather than just a warning system, Han observed, adding more notes to his growing documentation. You've turned a survival mechanism into entertainment and training simultaneously. As they continued their research, Han documented hundreds of examples of human psychological resilience. They studied cases of people surviving extreme isolation, adapting to complete lifestyle changes, and recovering from severe emotional trauma. Your psychological adaptability matches your physical resilience, Han noted. Perhaps they're connected in ways we haven't understood before. Dr. Park shared data from various psychological studies, showing how humans could maintain hope and humor even in dire circumstances. Han was particularly impressed by stories of people finding positive outcomes in seemingly devastating situations. We have a saying, Park explained, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's not just about physical challenges. It applies to emotional and psychological challenges too. Han added this to his research, noting how this attitude seemed to be a fundamental aspect of human psychology. The ability to not just survive hardship, but to find meaning and growth in it was unprecedented in his studies of other species. As the day progressed, they compiled more data on human psychological adaptations. Han documented how humans use storytelling to process fear and trauma, how they formed stronger bonds through shared challenges, and how they consistently pushed beyond their comfort zones in pursuit of growth. I believe I'm documenting something more significant than just unusual behaviors, Han told Park as they concluded their day's research. Your species has developed a unique relationship with fear and stress. You've turned evolutionary warning signals into tools for advancement. Before leaving the research center that evening, Han added one final note to his documentation. Human psychological resilience appears to be not just a survival mechanism, but a driving force in their development as a species. Their ability to transform fear into curiosity, stress into strength, and danger into entertainment suggests possibilities we never considered in our understanding of sentient species development. Dr. Park found Han still working when he arrived the next morning, the alien scientist's three eyes fixed on new data streams, his membrane quivering with excitement as he documented more examples of humanity's unique psychological characteristics. In the quiet of his Earth laboratory, Dr. Han sat before his communication terminal, the soft glow of multiple screens illuminating his three eyes. After months of research, The time had come to send his formal message to the Stellar Research Institute. His membrane quivered slightly as his fingers moved across the holographic keyboard. The first draft of his message had been too emotional, the second too technical. Now, on his third attempt, he finally began to find the right words. Esteemed colleagues of the Stellar Research Institute, I write to inform you that I will not be returning to Centauri. The evidence I have gathered about human capabilities has fundamentally changed our understanding of biological potential. They are not primitive as we assumed. In fact, their adaptability suggests they may soon surpass us technologically. Han paused, reviewing the opening paragraph. The words felt heavy with meaning, knowing they would create a storm of controversy back home. He continued typing. My initial observations barely scratched the surface of human potential. Their physical resilience extends far beyond what our instruments can measure. They routinely survive conditions that our medical science considers fatal. Their ability to adapt to extreme environments happens at a speed that defies our biological models. As he wrote, Han glanced at the wall of data screens surrounding his workspace. Each displayed different aspects of his research: medical records, physical performance data, psychological studies. The sheer volume of information was staggering. Perhaps most remarkable is their psychological resilience. Humans not only survive trauma, they often emerge stronger. They actively seek out challenges that would terrify our species. They turn potentially lethal activities into recreational pursuits. Their capacity for adaptation extends beyond mere survival into deliberate self-improvement. Han added detailed examples from his research, carefully selecting incidents that would be impossible to dismiss as equipment malfunctions or observational errors. He included footage of humans recovering from severe injuries, thriving in extreme environments, and demonstrating remarkable learning capabilities. Our assumption that technological advancement follows a predictable pattern has been proven wrong. Humans take technological leaps that defy our models of societal development. Their innovation stems not from careful, methodical advancement, but from an almost reckless desire to push boundaries. The message grew longer as Han added more evidence. He included data about human medical practices that would shock his colleagues: how humans deliberately poisoned themselves to fight diseases, how they transplanted organs between bodies, how they modified their own genetics. Your dismissal of my initial findings was understandable. I too would have doubted these observations without direct evidence, but I can no longer remain silent about the true potential of this species. They are not just another developing civilization. They represent a completely new model of biological and technological evolution. As he composed the message, memories of his last council meeting on Centauri flashed through his mind. He remembered the dismissive looks, the accusations of equipment malfunction, the suggestions that he needed rest. His membrane rippled with determination as he continued writing. I have attached terabytes of research data, all verified through multiple independent methods. The implications of these findings will require us to revise many of our fundamental scientific assumptions. Humans are not just different. They represent possibilities we never imagined could exist. Han spent hours carefully organizing the attached data. He included everything: raw sensor readings, video footage, medical scans, psychological studies, and detailed analysis of human adaptation capabilities. Each piece of evidence was carefully annotated and cross-referenced. I understand this message may cause significant disruption to our scientific community. Some may dismiss it as the ravings of a researcher who has spent too much time away from home. But the evidence speaks for itself. Humans are rewriting what we thought we knew about the limits of biological life. As he neared the end of his message, Han added a personal note. My decision to remain on Earth is not just about continuing research. It's about being present for what may be one of the most significant developments in galactic history. Humanity is on the verge of discoveries that will change everything we think we know about life's potential. Finally, after one last review, Han's finger hovered over the transmission button. He knew this message would shake Centaurian society to its core. It would challenge centuries of scientific assumptions and force his people to reconsider their place in the universe. With a slight tremor in his hand, he pressed the button. The message, along with its massive data attachments, began its journey through space towards Centauri. Hans sat back in his chair, all three eyes closed, knowing he had just changed the course of two civilizations forever. Message transmitted, the computer announced softly. The holographic image of Chief Scientist Kang flickered to life in Han's office at the Global Research Center, casting an eerie blue glow across the room. Even through the hologram, Han could see the frustration in his former superior's three eyes. Dr. Han. Kang's voice carried the weight of authority despite traveling across light years. This is your final warning. Return to Centauri or face permanent exile. Your research is causing unprecedented disruption in our scientific community. Some are even questioning our most basic biological principles. Han stood quietly by his window, watching the bustling streets of New Seoul below. Humans hurried about their daily lives. Construction workers scaling impossible heights, athletes pushing their bodies beyond normal limits, children learning and adapting at remarkable speeds. Each one was a living testament to the extraordinary capabilities he had spent months documenting. I choose exile, he replied simply, turning back to face Kang's hologram. There is still too much to learn here. Every day brings new discoveries about human potential. You would abandon your home, your position, your entire life's work. Kang's membrane rippled with disbelief. No, Han corrected gently. I'm pursuing my life's work more fully than ever before. These humans, they're redefining everything we thought we knew about biological limitations. The hologram flickered as Kang leaned forward. You've lost your scientific objectivity, Han. These humans have clouded your judgment. Or perhaps they've cleared it, Han responded, gesturing to the city beyond his window. Look at what they've built, how they've adapted, how they continue to push boundaries we thought were fixed by natural law. Kang's image shimmered with frustration. This is your last chance, old friend. Return home, and we can forget this temporary insanity. Temporary. Han's membrane quivered with amusement. That's exactly what humans have taught me doesn't exist. What we call impossible, they treat as a temporary inconvenience. With a final look of disappointment, Kang's hologram disappeared, leaving Han alone in his office. But he wasn't alone for long. Dr. Park entered, carrying fresh research data. Everything okay? Park asked, noticing Han's thoughtful expression. Better than okay, Han replied. I just chose my future. The years that followed proved Han's decision right. He became Earth's leading expert in xenobiology, teaching at the International Science Academy. His unique perspective, being both observer and participant in human-alien relations, made his classes among the most popular at the Academy. His favorite lecture always began the same way. I came to study humans, but they ended up teaching me that the impossible is merely a temporary inconvenience. Students would lean forward, captivated by his stories of first contact, cultural shock, and growing understanding. He taught them about the unique place humans held in the galaxy, not because they were stronger or smarter than other species, but because they refused to accept limitations. Your species, he would tell his students, doesn't just adapt to survive. You adapt to thrive. You don't just overcome obstacles, you seek them out, challenge them, and transform them into opportunities. Han's research continued to break new ground in understanding human potential. He documented countless examples of human resilience, adaptation, and innovation. His work sparked a revolution in xenobiology across multiple worlds. On quiet evenings, he would still stand by his window, watching the city that had become his home. He saw humans continuing to push boundaries, defying expectations, and reimagining what was possible. Each day brought new surprises, new discoveries, new reasons to marvel at the species that had changed his understanding of life itself. Children who had been in his first classes grew up to become scientists themselves, carrying his teachings to new generations. Many went on to make breakthrough discoveries, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge even further. The greatest gift humans gave me, he would often say in interviews, wasn't just the knowledge of what they could do, but the understanding that capabilities are never truly limited. The only real limits are the ones we accept without questioning. Han never regretted his choice of exile. In fact, he stopped seeing it as exile at all. How could it be exile when he had found a home among beings who constantly showed him new ways to view the universe? As he prepared for another day of teaching, Han looked at his reflection in the window. Older now, but his 3 eyes still bright with curiosity. Outside, New Seoul continued to grow and change, just like the humans who built it. And somewhere out there, his research was still traveling among the stars, challenging other species to rethink their own limitations. In the end, he wrote in his final research paper, "The most remarkable thing about humans isn't their physical or psychological resilience. It's their ability to make the impossible possible, simply by refusing to accept that anything is truly impossible." The end.